while I have quite a few works in progress that I'm hanging on to, that I'm working through, I have got a lot of sock whips. Hi, my name is Emily Crow from The Cozy Crow, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are starting off my March Attack My Stash vlog. So my big goal for 2026 is to use up quite a bit of my yarn stash to make that my priority goal in picking projects, in working on projects, and trying to make all of my yarn fit in the space that I have. I just feel like we are bursting at the seams a little bit. I feel like I haven't gotten to the projects that I want to. I also don't have the funds to buy a lot of yarn this year because I just had a newborn, so I'll be staying home with my kids more and not working as much. So all those factors mean I want to use the yarn stash that I have and not purchase as much yarn. If you're new to this series, I'll link my previous videos down below, but I did an intro video where I started cataloging my old yarn. I have a couple tote bins of older yarn, like acrylics and whatnot, that I purchased 6, 7, 8 years ago. So those are very old. My hand-dyed yarns, not quite as old, but I still have a lot of yarns I want to work through. Don't worry. But in February, I did a Finish It February, trying to finish off some projects. And in that video, I realized I have a lot of sock works in progress. I have knit over 100 pairs of socks in my knitting lifetime in the past 4+ years, but I have a lot of socks on the needles that I really need to work on. I love socks, first of all, but the reason that I love working on socks, they're very portable. They're a really easy way to try out a new technique or get a little taste of something that you're really itching to do. For me, with all my experience, they're really easy to cast on and bind off, and I already know pretty well my basic vanilla formula, and I know how to make socks that fit my foot in a way that I like. It's a great way to showcase some hand-dyed yarn and to use up a skein of special yarn that is intended for socks, of course. But all those factors, I love knitting socks, and they are a great fit for the kind of knitting that I do in this season of my life. But I have a lot on the needles that I need to clear off. So my goal for March is to continue working on my works in progress. I don't have a fun catchphrase for it, not like Finish It February, but if you have one, let me know for March. Some kind of alliteration, I would love that. But I'm going to be working on my sock works in progress this month and really making that a focus of what I am doing, especially for this vlog, because if I'm trying to use up a skein of yarn, a pair of socks uses up more than half a skein of yarn. So I count that as a skein completed for my stash, and the remainder goes into my scrap pile. So all of these sock projects, I could get through a lot of skeins of yarn. And there's even one that has been lingering for years now that would be great to knock off the needles. I will probably be working on other works in progress during the month of March, but they will not be in this vlog. So if you're interested in seeing everything that I work on and complete, make sure to check out my podcast that'll come out in early April, where I review everything that I made in March. But for this vlog, let's jump into our sock projects and kind of my priorities in what I'm going to accomplish. Last month, I did finish a few projects and I'm really happy with my progress. It's really hard with a newborn and a 5-year-old and other obligations with my family and my home and getting started back at work soon, all that stuff. There's just a lot going on. So I'm happy with the progress I made, though I would love to make more progress on my whips so then I feel better about casting on some of this yarn to continue using up that stash as well. But I haven't counted this yarn that are in my works in progress as being used up yet. So this will still work on my Attack My Stash goal by decreasing my total amount of stash. Let's talk about the projects I have and kind of what my focuses are. A lot of these you will have seen if you've watched some of my videos. So I'm just gonna do really quick updates about these projects. These are the Cup of Cocoa socks that I wanna knit my brother's girlfriend. This is the first sock. I am on the leg. Pretty soon I'll probably be able to start the heel because this color work took up quite a lot of real estate on the leg, and I really hated doing this 3-color color work, so it took me a really long time. But this broken rib texture for the rest of the sock will be pretty quick. I had a baby in December, and so I did not work on my Advent project because I just had too much other things going on in prepping for baby and having a baby. So these are my Freckled Whimsy socks from her 2025 Advent. I am on color 3. Just finishing that. I'm doing toe up so I can get through all 24 colors in the skein before binding off. Make sure to showcase all of them. I have 2 50-gram cakes. They did come together, so I only counted it as one skein total to do this pair of socks. But again, this is the first sock I have a long ways to go, but it is completely vanilla. So it should be a quick make. These are my Piece of the Pie socks by Kimberly Fridsma, or Kimber's Cozy Creations. I'm using Mulberry Fabrico for this yarn. And I am on the gusset. I'm doing, again, a toe-up sock is how the pattern is written. I love this texture. So, so cute. So I'm gonna do a heel flap and gusset. This is the first sock. Got a little ways to go, but I'm making progress. And I'm actually really feeling this stitch pattern, so these might be at the top of my list. I have this sock yarn already set aside in a bag, so I figured I would pull it out and show you. But this is Coven Collective's Winter Magic Sock Mist 2024 colorway set in collaboration with Nitty Natty. I did purchase Nitty Natty's pattern for these socks, and so I should cast them on and get them done, especially as we are coming out of winter into spring. These might get worked on. I am using this Teeny Button Studio Advent yarn. They did a cozy book inspired weekly countdown 2024, 2023. It might be in 2023. I don't remember. But there is one full skein, all the rest for 50-gram skeins, and I'm making journey socks out of every single one of them. So I have 3 journey socks already completed. I have 1 more to make from the 50-gram skein, and then 1 more to make from the full skein. And then I don't know if I want to do anything in particular with the scraps, but I have those 2 socks that I've been meaning to make. And that pattern is by Heidi and Lana. I have the yarn ready to go for Stephen West's sock knit along, not last year, so not 2025, in 2024. I did not get a chance to finish. I started and I wasn't feeling it. I really, really liked the design on the foot of the sock, and so I might just cast these on and work on the foot of the sock instead of doing like the weird welts and stuff on the leg. And he does really long legs. I need a really short leg on my socks anyway. So these are ready to go. Here is said newborn who just woke up from a little nap. We are working on a nap schedule. He has not been napping for a long period of time, unfortunately. But next project to share with you, I'm working on a test knit for Carly Perrins of Northwoods Knit Co. These are the check socks. They're really fun, 2-color texture pattern, really fun to do and pretty intuitive just because you're stacking the slip stitches. Really soft and squishy too. I want to finish this pair of socks. I need to finish the first sock by Saturday for the testing deadline, and I want to finish the second sock soon too. I just pulled from scraps, so that won't actually help with my stash goal, but it'll decrease my total amount of yarn, so maybe I'll still include it. When I was looking for yarn for this, I saw this color combo of scraps, and I felt like the contrast wasn't strong enough for doing a texture like the check socks, but I'm really feeling maybe making like a color block or like a really big striped sock version of this. I'm not sure. He likes being in this position. If you're curious, he likes looking out. He likes a little pressure on his tummy. So there's that. And then honestly, this should be my priority because it's been on the needles for so long and it's the only one on my second sock. All these others I'm still on my first sock for, or I haven't even cast on. These are the July socks by Laura Moritz using Explore Knits and Fibers. I've had this for years now. I've missed, I think, 2 Julys where I haven't finished it in the month of July. So going on year 3 that they've been casted on, and then I wanted to make them even before that. These are one of the first sock patterns that I purchased when I started learning how to knit 4.5 years ago. So that's embarrassing. I need to finish these. So that's a little showcase of my yarn. I also have a lot of sock yarn. So let me show you the sock yarns that I'm inspired by right now that I may cast on for this month's Attack My Stash challenge. So like I said, these are all sock yarns. Mostly single skeins, some sock sets, and some places where I have 2 skeins of sock yarn that I want to use together in a project. And some of these might inspire me right now, especially as we are moving into spring this month. So let me pull out a couple skeins that I might work on. Honestly, not a lot of sock yarn is calling to me right now, and I think that's because I have so many WIPs. I really want to get things done. But a couple things that stood out to me that I might be interested in casting on this month. This set by Yarnaceous Fibers is called Triceraba, and this is from the Great Basin Fiber Arts Fair last year. I think there were 2 different colors. This was one of them. I think it was 2 years ago, actually, now that I think about it. This is Tiny Human Knits Scrappy Quilt. Just a 50-gram skein. That would be fun to work up. And then this is Backcountry Knitter. In the main skein is Summer 11, and this mini is called Melon. I picked them out separately to go together. Super fun. So some kind of springy colors for socks that might show up in this vlog sometime. Likely not if I have self-control to finish the projects I've already got going on. But just in case I cast anything on, this is what they may be. On that note, let's get working on some of these sock whips. My tentative order of completing these socks. But first is this test knit. Hello, it is the next day and we are gonna work on my priority project, which is the test knit for Northwoods Knit Co. I have my little bundle of joy right here. He's gonna hang out with me. Hey, smiley boy. Hi. And I'm going to work on this. I finished the heel the other day, and so now I'm just going around and around on the foot. It should be pretty mindless. I'm having a little bit of a rough day today. Went out to take my daughter to preschool and the tire was flat. The only tool I had was this teeny tiny compressor, which honestly, such a great tool. It's just like a little handheld Ryobi thing, but it took forever and it only got my tire to like 22 PSI before the battery died because I hadn't charged the battery in a while. So between that and trying to set up an appointment at the tire place and getting that all figured out, I just want to sit down and knit and have some peace, a little bit kind of regrouping time. So that's what I'm going to be doing. My skin is having issues. Didn't sleep great last night. I'm just in the throes of things. So yes, we are taking some time for me right now since my son is happy, he is fed, he is diapered, and we are ready to go. So we're going to work on this project. Here's a little heads up on how I'm doing. I have just started the next color, so I've barely started the foot. I have a little ways to go. I love this texture, how it looks visually though. So stunning. So I'm excited to work on this. I'm pretty sure, this is my guess for what these scraps are. Unfortunately, they are scraps, so I will not be counting them for my stash busting, but I have to prioritize this sock project. So I'm pretty sure this was from the Sunday morning socks that I knit as a test knit for Carly Parents. And I'm pretty sure that this is a colorway that's in my Grove Shawl Light from Through the Wardrobe Co. I think this is Coast to Coast. But these are just my guesses because again, this is from my scrap bin. Not working towards a stash, but working on this test knit right now. Hello, it has been a few days and I wanted to touch base with you about my sock progress. So I have completed the test knit for Northwoods Knit Co, Carly Parents. These are the check socks. I'm obsessed. These were not only fun to knit, but visually they're very striking. I just had a hard time picking colors, so that's why I picked a couple things from my scraps because I just don't have a lot of stash that are tonals, especially tonals that contrast really well. Really happy with how this turned out. I did do a deeper heel pocket. I borrowed 2 stitches on either side of the heel pocket that I would normally do, and so instead of doing a 32 stitch count heel for this short row heel, I did a 36 stitch count short row heel. I like the fit already. We'll see how it wears long term and if I really like that fit because it's really fun to knit a short row heel, but it just doesn't work as well with my higher instep. And so this was all in all a success. Because that's only using scraps and not stash though, I am going to be putting that on hold. I did cast on the second sock. Don't worry, I have the second sock casted on. But this video is about knitting socks and using my stash. That will not use up my stash. So I'm gonna pause on that and not have it as much of a priority. I still have a few weeks left in the month. I hope I can still finish the second sock, but I really wanna finish off some socks and some skeins of yarn too. So we're gonna pivot and we are gonna be working on my long-term work in progress, the July socks. So I've been knitting for about 4.5 years, coming up on 5 years. And the reason I wanted to learn how to knit was to knit socks. One of the very first sock patterns I ever purchased 4.5 years ago were the July socks by Laura Moritz. I would say it was probably 2 years before I even casted this on. And then it's been another 2 years on the needles, just very slowly, not really making progress. They've been lingering. And I think part of that is because there's this lace pattern, which isn't necessarily difficult, but I hadn't quite gotten to the point where it was intuitive for me. I don't know if that's just because I was still fairly new as a knitter when I casted these on. I felt like I had to look at the pattern, so it just felt a little bit slower. So I just didn't prioritize them. And now I'm worried about my gauge. They've also been hanging out a long time because of that. But I have the second sock casted on. The cuff is done. I have the main color already attached. So I think we gotta just go for it. I'm gonna pull the pattern up on my laptop and I'm gonna get started and hopefully maybe at least start a stitch repeat, if not complete a full repeat, would be my goal for today, because if I finish these socks, that is the longest knitting work in progress I have in my basket. So that would be amazing to get done, and it would use up a skein of yarn. And this pair of socks is my closest pair of socks to being completed and using up a skein of yarn on. It needs to be done. I really hope that my gauge isn't crazy far off from what my gauge was here. So we'll just have to play it by ear. Hopefully I don't have to rip back and start again. All right, so I have finished one full repeat of this pattern. Ta-da! It's been done in small increments just because of life. As you can tell, lighting is very poor right now. It is 9:30 at night, but I'm really happy. I've made significant progress on this. My first sock, I have 3 repeats on this first sock, so I'm going to match them, but that's like already a good chunk of the leg, so I'm really excited about that. And it's not hard. It's like a typical lace pattern with increases, decreases, and yarn overs. It's not a big deal. I don't know why it took me so long to get back to this. I think it was just so intimidating. The longer it was sitting in my WIP pile, the longer I didn't work on it, the harder it was to pick it up, if that makes sense. I don't know if you have any lingering WIPs that are like that, but if you do, just try and tackle them. It's really not that bad, especially if you just make it a focus. You can make a lot of progress on it. So we're gonna see how much longer it takes for me to get to the heel. I'm hoping that because I cast these socks on like 3 to 4 years ago, that I just followed the pattern as written and I didn't do anything weird. It is a heel flap and gusset pattern, my favorite, and I am just in the mood to do a heel flap and gusset, which is great because I feel like all my other socks are toe up right now. That's not true, but that's how it feels. So I'm looking forward to doing a cuff down, heel flap and gusset, and enjoying that process. So I'm just gonna follow the pattern as written and hope that it turns out matching this sock and I won't have to do any weird like tinking back or anything to make it match. So that is our goal. Gonna continue working on this and we are gonna finish this project this month. We are going on a trip. I am going to bring my July socks. We're gonna pound through these. It's only like a 1 overnight day trip. My goal is to finish the leg and get onto the heel during this trip. I'm not bringing any other socks because I want to make myself prioritize these, and I have a test knit scarf that I need to work on. Between those 2 projects, I think that is plenty for this little overnight trip. I thought it was time for a little update. We have 1 week left of March and I am on the foot of my sock, which is awesome. I worked really hard on this on our road trip up to Wyoming, and so I was able to get the leg done. I was even on the heel by the time we arrived in Wyoming, so I was much further along than I had necessarily planned to be, or like my minimum goal that I wanted to hit. So then I finished the heel and the gusset, and I am on the foot now. I counted my repeats on my first sock. I have 1.5 repeats done on the foot if I include the gusset, whereas on the sock I've already completed, I had 3.5 total repeats, including the gusset. So I have 2 full repeats left and that's it. Is that right? That would be awesome. That feels really attainable, like not too far away. So I'm really excited about this. I'm gonna get this done. It's been kind of a slog just because I felt a lot of internal pressure to like get this done finally. and it's not super simple. I have to pay attention to the chart. I can keep track of a couple rounds at a time. I have gotten used to the stitch pattern in that sense, but in some ways this stitch pattern is not intuitive for me. And so I keep having to check every couple rounds to make sure that I'm on track, that I didn't mess up, do anything wrong. And honestly, it hasn't been too difficult to like keep up with it. I did have to think back a couple rounds on the foot because I like put in an extra yarn over and mess things up. So I had to undo a little bit, but that was the only mistake that I faced. Has not been too difficult. So this needs to get done. After this, I don't know what I want to work on next because this has taken me longer than I anticipated. I've just had the romper suit I'm trying to finish as well for my son, and that is really close to being done. I have a scarf test knit that is also a really good stash buster, and that's due at the end of this week. And I also have a vlog where I am knitting a hat in relation to a book I'm reading. And so with all those other projects, I haven't done as much sock knitting for this vlog. And honestly, if we're looking at stash busting by knitting socks, I think these are my top two choices. Working on my Advent socks, because those are really easy vanilla knitting. Even though I have a ways to go, I have in the past knit 3 socks over the course of a week for a sock week. And my life is different now than back then, but I could finish 1 3/4 socks potentially, if that is the focus project. The other contender is the piece of the pie socks, which is another texture, so that might slow me down, but I'm already on the gusset of the first sock. So this wouldn't be too much longer before I get to the heel. Work the heel, so fun. I always enjoy doing a heel flap and gusset. And then working on the leg, just as long as I want to make it, it would be fairly simple, even if it is textured. So these are my top 2 contenders for what socks to work on next after I finish this pair. I'll have to mull it over. I think I'm feeling the vanilla socks just because I need something really simple. I need something really easy mentally, so this might be the one. It feels a little silly to work on seasonal socks outside of the season that they are intended for, but I would love to finish some of these projects. I have so many WIPs. I don't feel as good at this point in the month as I thought I would about completing my sock works in progress. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I have other things pulling my attention and my time right now, and so I'm trying to give myself grace and appreciate every chance I get to knit and to work on these works in progress and see what comes of it, knowing that I won't be able to tackle as much as I have in the past. That's life with a newborn. I have finally finished my July socks that are like 2.5 years in the making that they've been on the needles. So excited to knock those off the list. I'll show you my skein of yarn. I am using slightly different rules for sock skeins for Attack My Stash this year than for other projects because I typically get a pair of socks out of a skein of yarn and I don't usually use more than 50 grams of my main color. So I need to weigh this still, but this is like a good chunk that for another project, I would still count this as a skein in my stash, but I just made a whole project with this. So I'm gonna put this with my other sock yarn, count it as a skein used, and I should probably go through and count out how many of these like partially used sock yarn skeins I have in my stash that I pull from for gnomes and for other sock projects and, you know, small little additions. I use them like scraps. And so I'm considering them scraps, even though I probably have more than 50 grams left of this. Let's find out. Yeah, so I have 53 grams left of this. Technically considered a full skein for my Attack My Stash rules, but sock yarn is different. These are still wet. I'm blocking them. I will talk about these at the end, my thoughts on this, my thoughts on the pattern and the yarn, etc., etc. I did run out of my contrast color. I could have used like a foot and a half more. So if I had had more intentional tension on certain parts of the sock or maybe done a shorter cuff or something, I could have made it work, but I was not going to rip out anything. So I just finished off the end of one of these. And visually, I don't think they look any different. I had like a round and a half left to go when I decided I just need to loop through all of these live stitches and finish out the sock. So those are drying. I have not gotten hardly any knitting done this week. I feel like I had a test knit I was working on, so that was one of the reasons that I feel like I haven't done hardly any sock knitting. And I just, in general, I feel like my time has slipped away this week. My kids have been a lot more needy. I have not been able to sit down and spend more time filming and editing and knitting like I would like, and that's just my life right now. I wish I could have done a vlog like this when I didn't have a newborn. It would have been so cool to see how much I could have gotten done. I'm a little disappointed that I only have 2 days left of March and I still have so many socks on the needles, but that's life in certain seasons. So I'm just gonna embrace it and get through as much as I can and seek to still enjoy my craft, even if I don't get the amount of time and the amount of projects done that I would like. I'm trying to decide what I want to do. I might just try to bang through those Advent socks because that's the most likely ones I'm going to finish because they're so mindless. That's my thought. I don't know if I can finish in 2 days though. Let's get back to this and we'll see how much I got done in the month of March. All right, so March is over. It is a nice gloomy day, so I get to wear a long sleeve. It's been like in the 70s for like a week and a half. I'm so enjoying this 50-degree weather. It feels so much nicer. But now that March is over, I wanted to go over everything that I made in this vlog. And I wanted to talk about everything that I learned this month as I tried to attack my stash. I will say I'm a bit disappointed in this vlog because I have a lot of sock works in progress. I love knitting socks and I just didn't finish as much as I thought I would. And I know I'm still just getting used to this season of my life. And also, most of these sock projects were kind of far from finishing. Like I was on the first sock for almost every single one. And so it's also totally okay that I didn't make as much progress as I thought I would because I did still make progress. If you are feeling like you're just not getting through as many projects as you would like, if you're not finishing things as often as you'd like, I totally feel you. Let's all just give ourselves grace and keep enjoying the crafting that we're doing, even if it's not to the extent that we are hoping for. Because life, sometimes, you know? One finished object that I'm honestly really proud of because this has been on my needles for 2.5 years, I think I did the math. My July socks by Laura Moritz. This whole pair has taken me a really long time because I started these when I was still fairly new at knitting. I'd been knitting for a couple years, so not so brand new. But with the lace pattern, it wasn't intuitive and other things just took precedent. And so the first sock took me a really long time, like probably a year to do. And then I cast it on the second sock and I really wanted to try to finish the pair, but I don't know if you feel this way, but when a work in progress lingers, you feel like it's already taken this long. What's another day of not finishing it? And then it just gets longer and longer and it gets more daunting to finish it because you're like, oh, I have to track down the pattern and figure out where I left off in the pattern and try to remember if I did any modifications that I should keep track of. There's just a lot more of a mental task the longer you wait to finish a work in progress. And I definitely felt that with this project. I feel so good that I finished this finally. I think that the lace is really pretty. It's got this interesting like three-dimensionalness to it because of how the lace is, which I think is really interesting. And I absolutely love this colorway. This is Explore Knits and Fibers in the colorway Moonshine, I think. Moonstone, I think is the colorway. And the mini that went with it in the sock set is called Untamed. I have not purchased from Explore Knits and Fibers in a really long time actually, but this is a beautiful pastel-y colorway, definitely a little on the warm side, but it's got periwinkle, purple, pink. It's very beautiful. Kind of reminds me of clouds during sunset. Love, love, love. And finishing it feels so nice. I did mention I had some issues because I ran out of my contrast yarn. So I don't know how well you can see that this toe looks a little different than this one. Actually, I think that this toe looks nicer. This is the toe where I had to kind of finagle it, where I ended up ripping back just a little bit and stopping 2 rounds before the end of the toe and then just decreasing every stitch around. So I halved my total stitch count and then I tied off and wove at my end, etc., etc. Whereas this one I followed to pattern and it looks a little bit more bunchy. So that's kind of interesting. I actually like how this toe looks better. But yeah, I was short maybe like 12 inches maybe 18 inches. So I was so close, but I have 0 of that contrast color left because of that. I do have a little over 50 grams left of the main skein, but if I use it for socks, I consider it part of my scraps now. I have an area in my craft room, some shelving where I put all my scraps. So I have small scraps, of course, that are truly scraps, but then I also have all the other sock yarn scraps also set aside. So counting that as a skein from my stash, because now it is in the scrap part of my yarn stash. So while this is my only finished object, I feel really good about this one, and I'm thinking I need to tackle some of my other lingering WIPs too soon. I had one other finished sock, and this was for a test knit, and this did not get any yarn from my stash because I pulled from my sock scraps. I have a bin specifically of tonals and solid colors that I used last year as I was participating in Sarah Shira's Year of Gnomes knit along, and so since those are already set aside, it was really easy to pull from there and try to figure out a combination for this test knit that I had for Carly Perrins. These are the check socks, like so cute. I did do a different short row heel. It's my typical short row heel. It's with German short rows. It's nothing too crazy or anything, but I also borrowed 2 stitches from either side of the instep so that my heel has 4 extra stitches, which makes the pocket deeper, and I'm really excited to see how these feel and how they wear long term, because I just find that most short row heels with my 32 stitch count heel are just too shallow for my heel and my instep. So I'm really excited to see how that works out. I absolutely love how striking these socks are, but again, both of these yarns I just pulled from my scrap yarn, unfortunately. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I have one sock done for test knit, and I love volunteering for test knits because it's a great way for me to use up my yarn. I just chose the combo that didn't use any of my stash yarn because that's what was calling to me. And you gotta knit what you love, right? Even if it doesn't use up stash. And so I have my cuff. I think my cuff might be almost done. I'd have to count and see. Yeah, it's just the cuff, so I don't know if I'm done with cuff stitches or not, but then I should establish my pattern so that these are pretty easy to take on the go, just barely on the second sock, so I have a little ways on that, but they're really fun. Because of the slip stitches, it kind of squishes the pattern and makes the row or round gauge a lot smaller. And so it does take a little bit longer than you would think based on the length of the sock. This is a little bit shorter than I typically like, but I had to knit more rounds than I typically like too, if that makes sense. So really excited to keep working on that, though doesn't impact this video, unfortunately, with the stash. That was my goal. And then I have one other work in progress that is a sock that I worked on. I got through one stripe more of these Advent socks. I can't remember if I worked on these earlier in the month as well, or if I worked on these partly in February. I'm pretty sure I've only done one stripe this month. So I just joined in this like emerald green color that's about to start, so that's kind of fun. These are a nice vanilla sock. They are toe up so that I can capture all the colors in this Advent skein from Freckled Whimsy. This was from 2025. I'm a bit late on it, but because it's toe up, once I get to the gusset, I will just need to check my math for like the gusset and heel because I'm not as fluent in my numbers for toe up heel flap and gusset socks. Maybe I'll try a short row heel though, the deeper short row heel, because it already feels really good, that other sock. This one, it feels really good on my foot. So maybe I will just take a leap of faith and do that same thing for this sock, but I'm a little ways away from that. Unfortunately, did not make as much progress. So there you have it. One finished object, one half finished object, and one barely worked on work in progress. I have many sock WIPs left, and I have many other WIPs left, but I think I'm ready to focus on a different goal for the month of April for Attack My Stash. I am liking having these focused vlogs where I have kind of a theme that contributes to attacking my stash, but I also like that this vlog specifically doesn't include every single thing that I worked on, because you're gonna see that in my podcast episode that's coming out really soon towards the beginning of April. So I like having slightly different content in that way. So I think instead of doing an overarching everything that I'm working on in the month, I'm gonna have a focus. And I think my focus is gonna be over under how many skeins do I have in my yarn stash. Over on Instagram, I'm gonna be doing some polls where I'm asking, do you think I have over under this many skeins of sock yarn, or over under this many skeins of worsted, over under this many skeins of self-striping yarn, over under this many skeins of sock sets, you know, things like that. So I think I might do that over on my Instagram, and then I'll actually go through and categorize all this, because that is also a big task I've been putting off. And I want to categorize all of my yarn for multiple reasons. For Attack My Stash, so I can get a better sense of how much yarn I actually have in my stash, so I can have a written record that I can refer to when I'm searching through my stash for making projects, and also for insurance purposes, just having a record of these things. I've made a huge investment over the past like 5 years or so in my hand-dyed yarn stash. That is a lot of money that I have spent, and I would hate for natural disaster or something to happen and I don't have a record of this for insurance purposes. Just in general, for disaster preparedness, every like few months you should take a slow like 5 to 10 minute video walking through your house, taking a video of everything that's in there so that you can have a really good record for insurance purposes. I think that would be really good for me to do with my yarn. This is not everything either. So I already classified all my older stash yarn that I have in totes that I'm gonna store probably in the garage or maybe down in the basement. And I have like 150-ish skeins there of like acrylic that I use for amigurumi and other yarns I'm trying to de-stash. If you want to check it out, they're on my Ravelry de-stash. I need to classify everything else that I am more actively working from for the projects that are currently inspiring me. If you're interested in participating in Over Under for my yarn stash, then make sure to check me out on Instagram at Crochet Creations, and I will be doing that vlog, sharing over under of what I actually have in my yarn stash and coming up with a final number in April of how much yarn I have in my stash. So I think having a change of pace in working on this Attack My Stash goal will be really good for me. Thank you so much for joining me for this vlog as I shared all the different sock works in progress that I have, as well as tried to work through some of them. If you enjoy this type of content and want to see more from me, I would love for you to subscribe and hit the bell notification down below to be notified every time I post a new video. And share with me down below what kind of projects you're working on right now to attack your stash. And until next time, happy making. Bye!